Hello everybody and welcome along. Thanks very much for joining us today for another of our RTS Scotland virtual events. You may have joined the Student Awards at the end of April, and this session today feels like the natural next step. So today's event is all about getting in and getting noticed in TV. And over the next hour, we'll have lots of advice and tips and tricks to help you do just that. My name is Kevin McCormick and I'm chairing the discussion today. I work for BBC Studios. I'm here in Pacific Quay at the moment, and I've been at the BBC for over 30 years in a number of different roles. At the moment, I oversee our UK operations for BBC Studios across our main sites around the UK. And I've worked in various production management, finance, business, and project management roles across my career. I'm joined today by Kate Efomi. And Kate is the new training and liaison manager for ScreenSkills in Scotland. And Kate has over 20 years of experience in development and production roles across film, television dramas, and documentaries. I'm also joined by Jeannot Hutcheson. Jeannot is a talent manager at Raise the Roof Productions and is responsible for talent and HR there. Jeannot has a wealth of television experience, has worked in development roles and production departments, but also as a producer and a writer. And she's helped to oversee the running of all aspects of production in the company. I'm also joined by Jane McLaughlin. Jane is a talent executive at BBC Studios with me. So Jane's role is to source production TV freelancers, and she works to bring in people across a broad slate of commissions for BBC Studios, including those for the BBC, Channel 4, Channel 5, Netflix, Nat Geo, and even Migu, who's one of the Chinese broadcasters. Jane's passionate about bringing in diverse and inclusive teams, and she's always on the lookout for new people to bring into the industry. I've also been joined today by Kaljeven, Singh, Lally. Cal studied sound engineering at University of West of Scotland. And then moved his way into assistant editing and an editor on various productions, including River City down at Dumbarton and Outlander and Shetland and Princess Mirabelle. And he's also been able to move on into directing and has been shadowing a block of River City and hopes to direct his first episode later this year. And then last, but by no means least, we're joined by Professor Dario Sinforiani, and Dario is the head of production at Stirling University, going back to 2013. And many Stirling graduates have gone on to successful industry careers. The university is firmly established as a centre of excellence for production teaching. So welcome to everybody. Let me just say as well that if you've got any questions that you'd like us to answer as we go, we'll try and do our best to get to as many of those. Please stick them in the Q&A box, and that's better than the chat box, which ends up going to absolutely everybody. But if you put them in the Q&A box, then we'll try and get to them. So let's kick off. And we're going to start, first of all, by looking at sort of getting in. And I wondered if we could maybe start with Cal, because Cal, you've joined the industry relatively recently. And I wonder if we could just get a sense of, what's your story? We heard there that you'd studied sound engineering, but I think you then managed to get a trainee placement, and maybe was that the break that you sort of craved?
Yeah, no, that was the sort of big break for me, and something I quite often think about, because I really don't know how I would have got in without it, because it can be really daunting. I think especially as well in the past few years, there has been this sort of mass explosion of work, which wasn't always really about in Scotland. So it's a really good time to be trying to break in. So for me, yeah, I studied sound engineering, and yeah, I learned sort of in the first year of that course that I actually wanted to work in film and TV. So I spent the sort of next couple of years just teaching myself whatever I could. I knew I wanted to work in post, and from that, like, I managed to get enough sort of just a few experiences here and there. I'd done a placement at the BBC. I had a couple of weeks work experience at IWC Media. I was working on shorts and sort of no budget features, that sort of stuff as well. And then I got a sort of job working, shooting sort of corporate stuff and recording voiceovers. So I had all these like little other bits of experience which weren't quite professional, but showed that I was interested. So when Nets came around, yeah, I managed to sort of get onto that.
So what was Nets? Just explain to everybody what that was.
Nets was like it doesn't run every year, but it's like a 9 month or 9 months to a year long training scheme where they basically hire you, they train you up, and so they pay your salary and they put you onto productions as like an additional hand. So it's just a great way to learn because you're not there to do a job specifically, so there's no pressure on you. You can just sort of be there to observe and learn, I think, in a really good sort of way without all the pressure being on you. And I think when you're a trainee, the big thing for me was I thought I needed to know all these sorts of bits and pieces and all this sort of stuff, but actually you're there at the most entry level position. You don't need to know anything. Nothing is ever going to be your responsibility, and it never should be. Even when you do, it's obviously good to be able to hit the ground running and help out, but ultimately it's always someone else's responsibility.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And so I wouldn't concern yourself if you're not meant to know those things as a trainee.
And then how did you go from sound engineering into directing at River City? That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's been quite a fun journey as well. So I've always sort of kept that sort of kept that muscle. That was a bad road to go down. I've always kept that interest and kept that active. So I managed to go from a trainee to an assistant editor, and then I was just in a really great position. I just kept catching like the best timing and the best breaks as an assistant. Like when one job was finished, there'd be another job just starting, and I'd be able to just keep doing more experienced or bigger jobs. I got to the point where I was sort of getting offered like really, really big shows as an assistant editor, and I sort of managed to use that to get opportunities to start editing. And then I just stepped up to edit, I suppose, quite quickly. And then you're creative, you're getting to the creative stuff every day, you're HOD, people have to sort of show you some sort of respect every now and again. But that puts you in a great place to have conversations with really important people and also show them that you're creative, you know what's going on, and just I suppose get seen in that way. And River City have a great sort of program of taking people through the director shadowing and sort of taking people and giving them their first broadcast credits as a director. So I just started chance my arm and started talking to Martin about that, who's our exec on River City. And he was really responsive and sort of told me what I needed to do to get onto the scheme and all that sort of stuff. And we just done our first block there, and it went great. As part of that, I'd done quite a few scenes. So I directed quite a few scenes, and they all went good as well. And that means I'll be getting an episode in the summer now.
That's fantastic. Really well done. Let's bring in Dario now. So Dario, we heard there from Carl about his journey, and he's clearly been really successful and destined for big things. So when students are reaching the end of their time on the courses that you're running, what's the advice that you're giving to them?
I think there's a few things. One is that's really, really important from the first stage when you're doing production, is learn to be a team player. Lots of people come into production as students with kind of high aspirations to eventually direct or whatever like that, but actually what you've got to learn in the first instance is that production is something that involves working in teams, and that you have to be able to be that reliable, organized team player to get anywhere. Another thing I would say would be try to take advantage of any opportunities that come your way. If you're on a course where somebody from industry comes in, make sure that you're one of the people who's seen to be asking questions. Maybe try to get their contact details at the end. I've had people from industry come in and say, keep in touch. And very often they're quite confident about being able to say keep in touch to a big group of people, because so few people actually do it. Really? So it's you know, on the day-to-day, it's about being a team player, but it's also about seeing how you can effectively create opportunities for yourself. So if you get any chance to have any contact, make sure that you try to stay in touch with them. If there are any opportunities, you know, within your course leader, tutors say there's an opportunity to do this. If you possibly can, be one of the people who volunteers for opportunities. It gives you more experience. Potentially, it gives you experience of working for a client, basically somebody who's got a need and you might be able to deliver something for them. But also try to make opportunities for yourself. We at Stirling quite often we broker work experiences and internships, but and those are fantastic, but they're not there for everybody. Those students who've managed to try to make those contacts early generated their own work experience, a day here, a couple of days there. It's kind of be a self-starter. Don't think that because you're doing a degree that involves some form of production, that there's an automatic link between having your degree and doing well in your degree, which is important, but that's not necessarily going to be the thing that gets, certainly not necessarily going to be the only thing that gets you a job. The more you're trying to take control of your own destiny, get in touch with people, look at the credits on productions, particularly that are made in Scotland, look to see who the people are that make things, see if you can get in touch. One of the things is, I think this is probably advice that is given quite a lot, but loads of people just don't act on it, you know. And actually, like Cal did, keep making things as well. Do you know what I mean? Because you're getting experience that way, but don't think that your student projects or your projects in your media society or television society are your route to the industry. Your route to the industry is making contacts within the industry.
Brilliant, really good advice there. And then let's turn to Kate. Kate, just give us a flavour of how you got into the industry.
From university, I was doing what just Dario was just saying, contacting people, saying I'm available, I'd love to learn, and had some work experience on a live TV drama for Channel 4.
Live drama, amazing.
I was a baptism of fire. I was a runner and making sure the lead actor was appearing in the right place at the right time, which is quite a lot of pressure, but I got it just as a result of not being a pest, but being persistent and being helpful and, you know, being available and making sure that people knew that I was there and interested. So yeah, I started out when I graduated at Pebble Mill, BBC Birmingham. Then it's locked down since then. Again on live TV, live daily DIY show called House Call as a trainee researcher, and then got a call to come up to work on a Songs of Praise for 10 weeks in Glasgow, and 20 years later I'm still here and loving it. It's great industry up here, nice and busy. I've done a lot of work on dramas since then as a script supervisor, and production managed a few things as well.
Amazing, thank you for that. So let's turn now to Jane and to Jeannot. Just interested really from your perspective then, as people who are hiring, what is it that you're looking for when you know, graduates coming off Dario's course or, you know, are leaving university, when they're coming to you? What sort of things are you looking for?
I think it varies, Kevin. You know, it really depends on the specific requirements of each particular commission and the kinds of teams we need to pull together. They could be big teams, they could be quite small, intimate teams. And the structure of those teams all result in the types of skills and experience that we're looking for. So I think initially what we're looking for is CVs actually that as a first instance really do demonstrate the skills and experience that somebody can bring us.
Yes, because that's all you've got to go on, isn't it?
That's right. It is in the first instance. It kind of, as a general rule, can start with a CV, and then that would then motivate a meeting, and then it would go from there naturally.
And Jeannot, what about you?
I would say, I mean, Jane's right, it varies on the role, but I think there are sort of a baseline of transferable skills that I'm always looking for in a CV. So, you know, it doesn't matter if you haven't, you know, I'm not expecting somebody who's just come out of uni to have, you know, a whole list of broadcast credits, of course not. So what I'm looking for is, well, what transferable skills have they got, both bringing from their university course, but also from a job in a supermarket or a job in a bar. You know, what are the skills that you can bring from that? Well, to work in a bar, you've got to be able to juggle a lot of different priorities. You've got to be able to communicate with customers. It's dealing with difficult people. And I think we're looking, you know, we're always looking for people that are organized. We're always looking for people that can communicate well. We at Raise the Roof have a lot of shows where, you know, we're casting, we're finding contributors. So being able to speak to people on the phone is a huge advantage. So work, for example, in a call center, or work, in a bar or in a supermarket, you're gaining valuable skills from there. So I really want to see that, you know, you can bring all those things in. We can show you the television bit of it at entry level, but we need to know that you've got those skills in the first place. So show us those things.
Yeah, so that sounds really good. Now, I think Jane and Jeannot, you've got some slides to share just around, you know, sort of ideal CV. Do you want to talk us through those now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember that, you know, your CV is a summary of your work experience and qualifications. And it's really a chance to market yourself to potential employers and let them see at a glance how you might be able to help them, what you can bring to them, what's in your toolkit, what are those transferable skills that Jeannot was talking about. And it's kind of up to you what you include in your CV, and decide what sort of balance of personality and professionalism is right for you. But most CVs, you know, you would obviously want to include your name. There are some people that forget to include their contact details, which has been quite challenging, as you can imagine. But also do make sure that the contact details that you put on there are accurate and correct. Phone numbers sometimes change. There's occasionally situations where there's typos in phone numbers. So, you know, accuracy is really important there. And certainly, I find it really helpful if you include a sort of short personal introduction to yourself, you know, roughly about 30 words describing yourself, your attitude, your personal interests, and your sort of key selling points.
I would also just, sorry Jane, I would just add to that as well, that part of that short personal introduction, if you do know there's a specific area of television that you would like to get into, or a specific role, and we don't expect people to necessarily know that at the early stages, but it's always useful if somebody says at the top, you know, my long-term goal is to become a production manager, for example. That's, I think that's a really kind of helpful. It shows that you've got ambition, and it shows that you've got a small understanding of the industry too. It's not essential, but it's just a good extra tip.
Yeah, and quite a number of people do actually then include underneath their sort of short personal profile a bullet pointed section with some key skills, which can be really useful. Whether that be, you know, any languages that you can bring, any technical skills in terms of self-shooting capability, the types of cameras you've got some experience on, even using any editing software, for example, to kind of list those things out. Would you agree, Jeannot?
Yeah, it's always useful to know people have got those additional skills. So yeah, bring them to the forefront.
Exactly, because it's actually remembering that a lot of hiring managers quite often can tend to read CVs at a glance. So having those key skills really helps, just really quite immediately get a grasp of the skills that you can bring to a production. And then you get into your work history, starting usually from the most recent and working your way back. Now, some people start to write a credit list as they start to build their experience. But what I think we also tend to also need is more than just a credit list. We want to know what your responsibilities were within the role. What did you actually do? Because those are the skills that we're looking for that could match a specific job we have. If you just write the name of the show and we've no idea what you've done, we don't get a sense as to whether you'd be a good fit for what we're looking for. So please do include that information. And usually then after you've listed out your work history, people tend to put their education, qualifications and training. And then you can also include whether you have a valid driving license. This one thing that I personally find useful is it's also quite interesting at the end of a CV sometimes to include what your hobbies are. Some of the ranges of shows that I'm crewing up can involve a number of music documentaries. Sometimes that's really interesting to see how, if you're into music, it can sometimes pop you up the priority pile, knowing that you might be a musician or that you might put on musical events. Just having that connection to the content can help through your hobbies, I would say.
Brilliant. Jane, I was just going to say, we've got a question here from Alice, and I know you're just about to come on to that, but she's saying, when emailing industry professionals, what are the important things we should include in the email? And I think we're going to just cover that now, looking at sort of cover letters, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important things are to sort of tailor your cover note and your CV to the opportunity that you're applying for. But most importantly, apologies for repetition, but really making sure that you are demonstrating within your email and your CV your skill set and your experience. So when you send your CV, you're always going to want to add a cover letter, and usually that is in the body of the email that you're attaching your CV to. So if you're applying for a job online, or just generally you're reaching out off the back of a Facebook shout out, it's probably best to try and save your CV as a PDF file and attach it to your email that contains your cover note. And the cover note is your opportunity to talk directly to the employer about why you want to work for them. And you want to spend some time getting it right. Make sure that you tailor your letter to each company or individual that you're contacting. Use the person's name. Don't write to whom it may concern. We're quite informal as an industry, so you want to be personable. And as I said before, adapt your CV and your cover letter to fit the needs of each person you send them to, and show that you've researched their company. In a way, that's kind of a bit of a no-brainer. Like, if you demonstrate that you've researched the company and that you enjoy their content and name check a couple of their shows, that will get you a long way. It's incredibly flattering and it's very, very motivating for an employer. So do reference their work.
And understand the difference, Jane, between what the broadcast is broadcasting and the fact that it's different production companies that are making that content. So always watching the credits and right to the end to see who it was what the production company was called. I think that's important, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And actually, each production company has their own website, so you can go on and have a look at the programs that they've made. And then, it's quite easy to access the content now, which is terrific. So you can catch up on any shows that you haven't seen.
Yeah, and clips and things are on company websites these days as well, aren't they? So you can watch a little bit and bluff your way a little bit to sort of having seen some of it.
But, you don't want to go on and on in your cover letter. Try and keep it quite brief and focused. Give your specific reasons for writing. For example, I am writing to apply for your vacancy as seen on Facebook or as seen wherever, you know, lay out your selling points, you know, your skills and your experience that shows, you know, what you can bring to the employer and demonstrates you've got something that they're looking for. And then you can prompt a further action by saying that you'd welcome the opportunity to meet with them to discuss your suitability for the role. So, you know, I think that's a kind of good structure in terms of how to reach out to a particular company. And then there's the frustration of waiting for a reply. We need to address that. I mean, we have to be really honest, and usually a lot of us are very under-resourced. We are receiving emails at all levels across the entire country and sometimes abroad, and it can be very difficult to respond to absolutely everybody on top of everything else. So please don't be disheartened, or do not take it personally if you don't receive an email, a response right away. And there's certain things that you can do to try and help manage that. I mean, you can follow up with a short email, but you know, continuing to send multiple emails might do more harm than good. It's sort of applying a bit of emotional intelligence around it, trying to strike the right balance between showing your enthusiasm and interest in the role without sort of pestering the employer. It's a tricky balance. You're going to have to kind of go with your own common sense, but so important to know not to be downhearted if it's been a while before you've actually heard a response. Just carefully maneuver that one. But the key thing is getting your CV right. I think that's one of the big factors that's going to open doors for you. We do have this template here. Now, it's not the perfect template, actually. There's some things missing in here. One thing that Jeannot and I didn't mention is I certainly find it useful if you put, naturally, of course, your name, but the job title. Now, you might be entry level and you're looking to find your way in as a runner, find your way in as a junior production management assistant or a junior researcher. But I think you have to make it clear at the top the roles that you're actually going for. So if you're an entry level researcher, you could put junior researcher. It's a debatable point. What do you think, Jeannot, in terms of, because if you put nothing, it leaves us a bit, it's unclear, isn't it?
It is unclear, yeah, I would agree. But I think that if somebody puts, you know, if it said at the top there, Bob Smith researcher or Bob Smith assistant producer, and you look at the credits and there isn't that type of credit, and that's also off-putting. So I would do what you've said and put at the top, you know, Bob Smith runner, and then, like I said, in the little blurb you're going to put about yourself, your personal statement, you could put currently a runner with a long-term goal of becoming a producer, whatever it is you're interested in. So yeah. Exactly. One thing to add as well about the cover letter, and all your points were spot on, Jane, but I get a lot of cover letters where people write and tell me what I can do for them and how I can help them and how I can improve their career. And, you know, at the end of the day, television, it is a business. So just remember that you're trying to sell yourself and tell the company what you can do for them. It is a sales, it's a sales pitch for you. I get so many CVs, and Jane will be the same. We all do. We get hundreds and hundreds. And as soon as somebody starts telling me how I can help them with their career, of course I want to help people with their career and I want to develop them. But at the end of the day, I've got roles to fill and I've got jobs to put people in. And so I want to know what skills those people are bringing. The skills is the most important thing.
Great. I've got a question here from Sarah, who's asking, what's valuable to highlight for returners to the industry? Jane or Jeannot?
I suppose it would depend what job. Sarah, I don't know if you can tell us what job you're.
And then Ross is asking, should you always attach a cover letter even if the position just asks for a CV?
I would say yes, put it in the email, don't just send a blank email with a CV attached, because we won't know what that's for. I think always, you don't need to attach a cover letter as a separate document, although you can do if you would like to, but we're happy to get that within the body of the email. But it's just a little introduction so that we know who you are, we know why you're getting in touch. I think if it's a returner, it's about looking at the job that you're wanting to come back into, and again, identifying the skills that are required within that role and just trying to show that you have all those transferable skills or real life credits within that job role and highlight them.
Great. And then Ross was also asking about, we've mentioned a lot about university, but what about leaving college? And if you've got an HNC, would you still be considered for entry-level positions?
Of
Definitely.
course.
Yeah.
And Cassie's nodding there as well. Yeah, 100%. The experience within the industry is very, very important, and the network is very, very important, just as much as the background and the academic training too. So don't worry about where you're coming from. There's also people who've got no academic background and are still coming into the industry. We're interested in skills as well as anything else, so that shouldn't be a barrier to coming in.
Totally. I think there's so many routes in, and then once you're in, you then start to build your production broadcast credits. It's almost like step one, get in. Step two, start building your credits, and try not to rush it. Become really good at the role you're in, build up the experience, and then it'll be a natural progression to then the next level. If you're finding that you're pushing and you're pushing and you're pushing and you're not managing to make it to the next level, it might be that you're trying to push too soon. So do take the time and don't put too much pressure on yourself to advance up the ladder. There's plenty of time.
Yeah. Talking of time, I'm going to wrap up on the CVs and cover letters now and turn to Kate. Now, Kate, you're working at ScreenSkills at the moment, and I think we've got a really nice little video here. I think again it was Ross that was asking, what are the different entry-level positions, and I think this video kind of sums up, just the broad range that exists in TV and film.
I didn't have any connections in the film industry before I started out.
A lot of the courses that are available are priced at quite premium rates.
I did feel like it was a bit of a barrier living in the northeast of England.
You need a driving licence to do a lot of roles in TV. I was working as a lighting technician, but I was held back from doing installations because I'd not yet taken this course.
I trained in creative and performing arts and kind of got sidetracked into being behind the scenes.
I've always wanted to be involved in the animation industry from when I was a child.
I was working in commercial film and I was really worried that the transition to TV would be quite difficult.
I was very surprised when I entered the industry at how many different departments there actually are. You always hear about camera, sound, editing, but you never really hear about all the other jobs which are actually really vital to the production.
I'm a trainee spark. It's a very old school word for an electrician.
I started out as a production office trainee with ScreenSkills, so you get to see all the departments, and that was where I came across visual effects.
Being a floor runner, we liaise with different departments.
I'm on my way to being a stunt performer.
I am a researcher in television.
You think of hair and makeup, camera department maybe, special effects sometimes, but locations you never seem to think that it's there.
I knew I was capable, I just needed to get someone to get me through the door. And that's what ScreenSkills did.
It gave me contacts. It also helped me to learn about writing letters to people.
I'm actually a domestic appliance engineer who used to work for Zanussi, fixing washing machines.
ScreenSkills arranged for me to get a placement on a feature film, working next to the hair and makeup designer.
I chose the Future Leaders in Distribution course that was funded by ScreenSkills, elevating women in the industry who've been doing their roles for 7 years plus.
I was so happy and relieved that I got a bursary for my driving lessons.
Without the support of ScreenSkills, I would not have been able to access such great training opportunities.
You've learnt those skills of networking from those traineeships, and you realise how important it is.
You can just chat to anyone and learn so much knowledge.
Actually waking up and be able to go to work in something I love and not go, oh, here's another day.
Don't compromise. Life's too short for that.
And it's worth just mentioning that at the end of the session, there's a number of slides that we'll put up that've got some links. So be prepared to sort of screen grab those when we get to that in 20 minutes or so, or get your cameras out, and you'll be able to keep hold of those links then. So I was just going to ask Kate to give us a flavour really of what it is that ScreenSkills do in the industry and the position that they've got, and just, you know, talk us through maybe some of the training schemes and things that ScreenSkills offer.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, that film gives a taste of what we do, really. In a nutshell, we're the skills and the training body for the screen industries, funded by the screen industries, and we refer to the screen industries to ask them what training is needed. Where are the gaps? Who do you need in your crew, and you can't find them? Because at the moment, it is, as we said earlier, it's such a busy time right now. It's a great time to get into the industries. We work across film, but we do a lot with HGTV, the high-end TV dramas and natural history documentaries. We work with unscripted, children's animation, and we do a lot with games as well, and have a careers department. So our website is a really good resource to go to if you're wanting to get into the industry, but we're also about career development of those who are in the industry as well, to help them step up in the roles, and training if they're mid career stage. There's a lot I could tell you, but it's best really to go to the website. We've got a link that's right there at the top on our menu, right at the beginning, that says starting your career. And that's a really, really good place to begin. That lays out all the things that you can benefit from there. Just to give a few examples, we've got a new free interactive e-learning course, which is covers things like an introduction to the screen industries and finding the right role for you. There are loads of roles out there that people don't necessarily know about, and we've done a lot of research and we've laid out the job descriptions of so many roles within the industries. You can really have a good look there and just check that what you've identified is the right thing for you, or just to help you identify something in the first place. And the e-learning helps you find work, apply for work, and how to perform well in interviews and things like that as well. So it's well worth a look. It's right there for you to access today. Other things that we do that were mentioned in the film as well are bursaries. We have bursaries for things like purchase of equipment or hire of equipment to help you in your job. We've got driving lessons, cover funding for driving lessons for those who demonstrate that they're in the industry and really, really need to get their license because they maybe haven't been able to get a job because they don't have one. And we have lots and lots of training courses. A lot of them are free as well. A lot of them are online, some are in person, some are starting to come back now. We're hoping to have a lot more in Scotland. And we've got our flagship, I'd say flagship, initiative called Trainee Finder, which is we run across film and animation and TV drama, and we recruit in the sort of winter time, November, December usually, and we interviewed thousands of applicants to be on our trainee cohort, and we work directly with TV productions, with drama productions, who come to us and ask for trainees, and we're able to provide some trainees who we've interviewed, we've got to know, we've trained, and we've placed them on high-end TV dramas and films. So that's a really, really good thing to look out for. And yeah, also freelancer toolkit as well.
Yes.
The ease into introduction to how to be freelance, because a lot of people working in the TV industries will be freelance at some point.
I think that's a good point. I was going to maybe bring in Dario there in terms of letting your students understand that sort of sense that it's a freelance market. Do you do a bit of that as people are working their way through?
We do kind of discuss it towards the end, and I think importantly as well, we have industry people coming in who are, who explain who they are and where they are. Sometimes they're listening to student pitches, but they always give some flavour of their own background, and a lot of those people are freelance. We also have a LinkedIn group for alumni, and we invite final year students to come into it, and that way we manage to have a whole bunch of people who've been through kind of the Stirling experience as a group, kind of to be able to connect with each other. And we always put, if we're aware of entry-level job opportunities, and subsequently because these people have gone on further, opportunities kind of a little bit higher up to move on, we always kind of put them on there. But we hope that can be a community of people who are helping each other.
Yeah, brilliant. And then Carl, I was just going to ask you in terms of that sort of freelance mentality probably that you need to sort of build up, and the resilience that goes with that. How have you found that as you've stepped through the early days of your career?
Yeah, I was also staff for a bit at a production house, post house for a bit. So I only really went freelance like in 2019.
Okay.
But yeah, I think because also like when I was an assistant, like I had to turn down so much work because I was, just didn't have time to do it all. And then I only really got the proper freelance fear once I became an editor, because then it started, you get a lot less phone calls. But I think the biggest thing for me was trying to rework my sort of mindset to look at my money for more than what it is. So if you do like a 3-month job, but look at it like it's 4 months of money, and so you actually don't just do what a lot of people do, and that's just keep working, because that is quite long hours, and you also just need a break. And it's a sort of, it can be quite difficult when you have to turn down work, because people do take it personally, which is the truth. And it can be difficult, but you need to sort of stick to your guns, and when you need a break, you need a break, and something will come up. And I think if you're open and honest with people, they might not be too happy immediately, but when it dies down a bit, they will respect it.
Yeah, that's good advice as well. And in terms of really early on, we're going to move on now really to sort of how you get noticed, and how you make sure that once you've got those first steps and you've broken in, and there was a question earlier from somebody who said they've had a bit of research experience, they've had some positions, but that there isn't other work coming through. What advice would you have there, just to get yourself noticed, standing out from the crowd?
So it's difficult because I came through post at a time where there just wasn't a lot of people, so I was sort of accelerated whether I was wanted it or not. What I mean? There was just no work. There's just no staff really in Scotland, and
no end of work.
Yeah. But what I'd say is what I always say to sort of people, students. I actually wrote this down so I say it properly. But I just think you need to be the keenest person in the room. You need to be sort of the life and have energy. And I don't mean like shouting and stuff and causing a party or anything, but just you'll see everyone else does get a bit jaded once you get once the hours start going and the years start going. So you don't really have that excuse. You should be super passionate, super keen, and yeah, always smiling, I suppose. And yeah, I think, and I suppose I hope it's not come across, but I've been trying to run up as quickly as possible. But I think you really need to find the passion for the job you're doing and not look too far ahead. And I think if you can do that and and take that seriously. And then, you know, there'll always be those moments where your plate won't be completely full. There'll be a bit where you can go to an editor and be like, is it all right if I maybe cut a scene and you give me some feedback on it? And that's fine. But if you're spending your day cutting scenes instead of doing your job properly, that relationship isn't gonna come to anything. So I think, and I just think you need to figure out how you get really passionate about the job you're doing, at the role you're doing, and not look too far forward.
That's good advice. Kate, I can see you're nodding. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, exactly what Cal's saying. You know, that enthusiasm goes a really, really long way, and enthusiasm in the job that you've got to do, because you know, make yourself indispensable to your line manager or your head of department, and that's how you make your mark, because they'll be going on to another job and they might want to ask you if you'd like to come with them if you've done well on that sort of first chance or first opportunity. The enthusiasm and the spark in the eye, I always call it, goes a really long way, I think.
Great. And Jane and Jeannot, do you want to give us your kind of tips then about, you know, how you keep noticed and, you know, stand out from the crowd once you've made it in somewhere? Because it is quite hard. The contracts can be quite short sometimes, and you know, so it is quite difficult at the beginning. I would certainly go along with that.
I think ways in which some people on our teams have stood out is the reality of a lot of these jobs is that there is a lot of problem solving, different kinds of problems that come up as we'd anticipate or unexpectedly. At all levels, we all face it, and how good are we at solving those problems? You know, usually we're never on our own, we're part of a team. But what can make you stand out is not only just raising a problem, but coming with a solution to that problem. I think that usually is quite a good tip. Don't just raise a problem and then have nothing else to offer. Try and think of a couple of solutions to bring to the table.
Thinking ahead is important as well. Somebody who is thinking 10 steps ahead and almost anticipating those problems beforehand. But I do think it's the enthusiasm and the ability to be friendly, be enthusiastic, ask people about themselves. Once you've got that first entry level position, even if it's just for a week, it's about, you know, if it's a work experience week, it's about taking advantage of that week, being enthusiastic, smiling, speaking to everyone that you possibly can, asking them about themselves, asking how they got in, what they did. And it's networking ultimately that's going to take you through all the different roles. And there is an element of luck. And Cal mentioned earlier when you were talking about your path about, I've been lucky, you know, that it's all kind of happened at the right time. But I would argue that it's not, you know, yes, but if you've been that enthusiastic person and that helpful person and that person who's got an ability to help out when problems come up or think ahead, then it's not really luck that it's all happened at the right time for you. It's because you're somebody that people want on their team. We had a girl a couple of years ago before the pandemic come in for work experience, and she really made her mark because she did exactly that. And then she kept in touch with me thereafter and just sent a little email from time to time, just saying, how are you doing? What's happening at Raise the Roof? And now she's working within the industry. So it's about those small builds.
And those engagements are important. You know, there are some people that might apply for jobs and write one sentence in a covering note. Or, for example, I know the BBC process sometimes can be extremely formal and there's an application form. And if certain questions in the application form, if the answers are in the CV, some people don't bother to fill out the application form properly. You do actually have to do that too. So it's really demonstrating that you're motivated, that you really want to work for this company and do this role. And part of the way that you can demonstrate that is by making an effort in your application, or really listening, really taking care around what the employer is looking for, and then look at your CV and check whether you've covered everything, check whether you're actually properly selling yourself. and put everything that you did that you were responsible for within your CV, with a really motivating, engaging cover note. That'll take you a long way.
Sounds good. Right, we've only got maybe 10 minutes left now, so I think we're going to pick up on some of the questions that have been posed. So I'll read some of these out, and just if someone wants to chip in with a quick response, we'll get through as many as we can. And then what we'll do is we'll put up the slide with the all the resources on it, and maybe people could give us a little bit of their sort of top tips just as we finish off. So let me see what we've got here. Yeah, so Ross is asking, would your CV, does it need to look boring? Maybe the one we put up was a bit black and white. Is it useful to have, you know, something a bit more colourful, a bit more aesthetically pleasing? Jane, very quickly.
Well, I've given colourful CVs before, and execs start to go a bit green and feel a bit sick looking at it. So actually, straightforward, smart, professional, black and white is best.
Excellent. There's an anonymous one here. I've been reading film, TV and drama at Brunel, and after failing to secure work as a runner, I went on to drama school. I've been working as an actress for 2 decades, very experienced. I've always been interested in the production side, and would like some career progression. Would the years of on-screen production be taken into account, or do I really need to start at entry level? I don't know, Kate maybe, or Jeannot?
Yeah, I think if you've got the experience, you can find ways of finding the relevance of what you've done and what you can bring to the industry. At ScreenSkills, we do a lot of work with transferers, people who might be from a completely different industry, but have the skills that they can bring, and they can perhaps might need to do a bit of entry-level training perhaps to start with, but can perhaps bring their skills at a slightly higher level than complete entry level if that can be demonstrated. Just to give an example, we had Pete Murphy, a locations manager on that film that you saw, and he's talking about how he used to be a Zanussi engineer, and he saw lots of houses because he was in houses fixing appliances every day, and so he sort of got a feel of areas and where locations could be found, and he brought those skills across to locations department, and he's now a locations manager. We work a lot with veterans as well. We've been looking into those who've been in the forces transferring across. So I think there is an element of training to go fresh into the industry if you haven't been in the industry for a while, but if you highlight those transferable skills, then I think it's more likely that you might progress a bit quicker. You might not have to start right from the bottom. If you do, it wouldn't be for long, I shouldn't think.
Okay, and there's one here about other opportunities for government funded positions in TV and film, for say those on universal credit. And there's somebody else just pointing out that actually there's, you know, lots of great tips here, but there are some real barriers around the sort of financial inequality. And, you know, if you're having to work in a pub to keep the roof over your head, then it's really difficult to keep sending in CVs and trying to make that breakthrough. I don't know if anyone's got anything there apart from empathy. It is really hard.
I think it's important that we acknowledge that, because I think it is really, really difficult for people. And I think as an industry, I think increasingly we're becoming we are aware of those barriers, and we are trying to put things in place. There's a few places that we can send that person to look at. So there's some, there's training schemes that have been set up over the last few years for people at entry level, which try and alleviate some of those barriers by offering training and an 8-month contract, because you're right, you can't just give up a job for a day here and a day there. That's not sustainable. How do you pay your bills? How do you eat? So what these schemes do is give that just start you off in the industry, give you an 8-month contract paid. You're getting the training at the same time. So TRC Media is a really good place to look. Pact, who are an industry trade organisation, they also run a scheme, and Channel 4 run a scheme. I mean, I'm sure Kate can probably...
The BBC apprenticeships are very good. They're now running 12 to 18-month contracts, which are across a whole load of different roles. I mean, I just so happen to crew up factual entertainment in the science unit with a concentration on the editorial role. So a lot of what I'm saying is kind of leaning towards that, but the BBC apprenticeships do go on the BBC Careers website, because there's a whole range, including a real push on growing production management, which I feel is an amazing opportunity that we've kind of neglected as an industry. But it's a terrific career path, and you can enter as a trainee production management assistant through the BBC apprenticeships or through the RAD scheme or some of the other schemes. Can't encourage people enough. There's a huge shortage in that regard, so please do consider it as a career path.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the training that we do as well, we try our best, and it's happening more and more, thankfully, to make sure that those trainees have placements that are paid, and it's, you know, for as long a time as possible, so that it's not sort of a day here, a day there. If people are a trainee on one of our courses, then a lot of times that comes with the funding as well, so that you can make that step. Yeah, it's very, very important. And also to say that there are a lot of productions in Scotland who are aware of that and wanting to look at ways that they can facilitate people having training experience or work experience whilst not needing to necessarily relinquish their benefits, because anything earned, I know, can affect benefits. So they look at different ways of getting around that whilst not saying, oh, sorry, we can't help you then. So yeah, hopefully there'll be more of that. But there are some, do look out for productions coming up on the Facebook groups, because there are a lot of schemes out there.
That's probably a good segue then into some of the slides, if we could bring up the rest of the slides. So do screen grab these, do get your camera out and just keep these links. So the first one here, really, this is a real summary of a lot of what ScreenSkills can offer. So there's the link at the top there that Kate mentioned about starting your career, lots of the kind of e-learning and the courses that you can just register and go and undertake, and the freelance toolkit at the bottom there again that Kate talked to. On the next slide, there's quite a lot of organizations here that do training. We've mentioned some of them as we've gone along. So TRC Media and Back2 Vision, and the ScreenNets that Cal talked about. Screen Scotland are on there as well, and Film City Futures, GMAC Film. So there's quite a lot of resources there. And then there was a question about, you know, how do you get in and talk to different companies? Well, you know, if you watch the credits at the end of shows, you'll see who makes them. Look up those companies. They're all going to have websites because they're all there trying to promote what they make. You can see the link for Raise the Roof, where Jeannot is, and BBC Studios, where myself and Jane are working, and the BBC Careers Hub. There's jobs at STV, there's jobs at Channel 4. There's also a website called Talent Manager, which sort of pulls together different indies and different companies that are promoting jobs and gets them out to, you know, there's quite a large number of people that register with Talent Manager to be able to see the different jobs that are on offer. And then Jane, Jeannot, and myself, and we've just invited Kate along. We run a sort of talent network within the industry, and we've got a website there which has got a number of links and to different companies that are part of our network, and not just sort of generic email addresses, but have very specific people that you can get in touch with. And then Facebook's an amazing resource. So, you know, you can see the whole list of different groups there that you can join or that you can access to be able to dip in and see the jobs, see what's happening in Scotland, really get a good understanding. So that's lots of resources there for job seeking. We've put our contact details up here, so do screenshot us, and we are very welcome to get your questions, and do keep in touch with us. I think just before we finish up, because we're just about at 1:30 now, we'll go round everybody and just give us, you know, a minute on your sort of top tips, the top things that you've liked from that we've talked about today. Just a quick reminder. We'll start with Dario.
I think what I would say would be keep making stuff on your own. Any opportunities you get to make contacts, then do. Like other people have said, if you catch a break, be be interested, be engaged, be organised, be on time. Don't be seen to be staring at your phone. All of those things. Engage with people, no matter what opportunity you get. Engage with people, because really that is how you catch a break, and that's how you move on, through people doing your job properly, but through people wanting to work with you.
Great. And Cal, what's your top tip?
My top tip is either you're late or you're early. You can't be on time. And then just one other quick thing. I think like now that I've like had trainees through and got, I suppose, the other side of the relationship, I think it's really good when, instead of them asking you why you've done something, if they can, even if it's like nowhere near correct or not, or they're just throwing out a suggestion, even if they just try to figure out why you might have like cut something this way, or, you know, approach the job in a certain way, because that just forces you to immediately sort of answer it, because you will just be like, oh no, I done it because of this, instead of being like, all right, ask me that later. And if someone tells you, if you're in a room and someone says, I'm busy right now, ask me that later, ask them, like just find the time later on and ask them, because so much, like I'll see them writing it down and they won't ask me it, and yeah, you know, you just move on.
Yeah, get a bit of feedback. It's always useful. Jane, top tips?
Well, one thing we haven't said, watch TV.
Very important.
If you're going for a job in TV, you need to demonstrate that you actually watch TV. You know, that in itself, being able to talk about what you're watching and why you think it works, you know, all of that stuff will make you stand out. It's really important. And just lastly to say, repetition, but important to say that when you see a job advert, really take in what each employer is looking for, and look to your CV and absolutely forensically go through it to ensure that you're demonstrating, that you're exhibiting the skills that they are looking for. Even if it's coming from another sector, you will have transferable skills. Take the time to get it right, because if you are actually submitting your CV for jobs and you're not getting any response, it could be that your CV is not there yet. So keep working on it.
Good advice. My top tip would be to always stay curious. Even after 30 years, I still like to ask people, how did you make that? How did you pull that off? That must have been incredible. And listen to people and understand what they tell you. Kate, top tip?
Take heart. It's the best time to be getting into the industry. We need you. If you've got the skills and can demonstrate that enthusiasm that we talked about, then you're very likely to be successful, especially right now when industry is crying out for talent. So keep going and take heart. Don't give up.
Really good advice. Yeah, don't give up. And Jeannot?
I would say be enthusiastic and be friendly, because you might meet somebody once and you might not get that first job, but you never know when you're going to meet the people again. And I think it's a lovely community, the Scottish industry, certainly in unscripted. I don't know much about scripted, but in unscripted, it's a very small community, and you always meet the same people. So be friendly, be enthusiastic, be nice.
Brilliant. That's a nice way of wrapping it up. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you've really enjoyed that session and found it useful. Thanks to Jane, Jeannot, Dario, Cal and Kate for joining me today. And thanks very much to you all for coming along. Do look out for the next of these virtual RTS events. I think I'm pointing you towards one on the 24th of May, which is about the role of producer-director. I think that's going to be available via the ScreenSkills website, but I'm sure it'll be advertised on the RTS Scotland website and their socials as well. There's details on the screen there for joining RTS. And that just leaves me to wish you all a very good afternoon. Thanks for joining, and goodbye for now.